My name is Viola, and I am 58 years old. I spent my entire life caring for my children, believing that one day they would appreciate everything I sacrificed. My 58th birthday dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, my daughter stood up in front of everyone and screamed at me to pay her mortgage. What she did not know was that I had been preparing for this moment. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Have you ever been humiliated by your own child in public? Stay with me because what happened next changed everything. 6 years ago, my husband Frank passed away from a sudden heart attack. One moment he was sitting at the breakfast table drinking his coffee and reading the newspaper like he did every morning. The next moment he was gone. Just like that. 40 years of marriage ended in a single heartbeat that never came. Frank left me with our small house in the suburbs of Pennsylvania, fully paid off after decades of careful budgeting. He also left me about $80,000 in savings money we had put aside penny by penny throughout our working lives. I was a bookkeeper for a small manufacturing company. Frank was a factory supervisor. We were never wealthy, but we were comfortable. We had enough. After Frank died, I continued working. I needed the routine, the structure, something to fill the empty hours that used to belong to him. I went to church every Sunday, joined a grief support group, and slowly learned how to live alone. The pain never fully disappeared, but it softened around the edges. I learned to carry it instead of being crushed by it. I always told myself that the savings were for our children. Frank and I had 2 kids together. Natalie, our daughter, was 32 years old at the time. She worked as a manager at a retail store and had been married to Derek for about 5 years. Marcus, our son, was 28. He worked as an electrician and lived in another state. He was always the quiet one, the independent one. He rarely called, but when he did, the conversations were meaningful. Natalie was different. She called often, but usually when she needed something. I did not want to see it at the time. A mother never wants to believe the worst about her child. 4 years ago, Natalie called me crying. She and Derek wanted to buy a house, but they could not qualify for a mortgage on their own. Derek had credit card debt from before they got married. His credit score was too low. The bank rejected their application twice. Natalie begged me on the phone. "Mum," she said, "if you could just co-sign and put down the deposit, we could finally have our own home. We have been renting for years. Derek feels terrible about his credit. We just need a little help to get started." I hesitated. Something in my gut told me to be careful. I called my younger sister Gloria, who lives in New Jersey, and asked for her opinion. Gloria did not hold back. "Viola," she said, "do not get financially entangled with them. If they cannot afford a house on their own, they should not be buying one. You will end up paying for everything." I told Natalie what Gloria said, hoping she would understand. But Natalie cried harder. She said I was being unfair. She said Derek felt humiliated that his past mistakes were holding them back. She promised me it would only be for 2 years. Just 2 years of help, and then they would take over completely. Then Derek called me. His voice was smooth and sweet, the way it always was when he wanted something. He called me Mum, even though I never quite felt comfortable with it. He said he would take care of me when I got old. He said they would name their first child after Frank. He painted a picture of a future where we were all one big, happy family, and all I had to do was help them get started. I gave in. I put down $30,000 as the deposit and agreed to be listed as a co-owner on the deed. The bank approved the mortgage with my name attached. Natalie and Derek moved into their new house, a 3-bedroom place with a nice backyard and a 2-car garage. They were so happy that day. Natalie hugged me and said I was the best mother in the world. For the first 2 years, I paid the mortgage every month. $1,800 taken directly from my savings. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself Natalie would keep her promise. In those 2 years, I spent $43,200 on mortgage payments alone. Combined with the deposit, I had already invested $73,200 into that house. Almost all of my savings were gone. But I did not complain. I visited Natalie and Derek a few times, and each time I noticed new things in their home. A giant flat-screen television mounted on the wall, a leather sectional sofa that looked like it cost a fortune, decorative items that served no purpose except to look expensive. When I asked about these purchases, Natalie waved her hand dismissively. "We bought everything on payment plans, Mum. It is not a big deal. We can afford the monthly installments." I wanted to ask how they could afford installments on luxury items, but not on their own mortgage. But I stayed quiet. I did not want to start an argument. I did not want to seem like a difficult mother. When the 2 years ended, I reminded Natalie about our agreement. She smiled and said of course she would start paying next month. I believed her. Why would I not believe my own daughter? The months after the 2-year mark passed slowly, each one heavier than the last. Month 25. Natalie called to say Derek had been sick. He missed 2 weeks of work and they were behind on bills. Could I cover the mortgage just one more time? Month 26. Their car broke down. The transmission failed completely. They needed a new vehicle and the car payments were eating into their budget. Just one more month, Mum. Month 27. There were unexpected medical expenses. Derek had to see a specialist. The insurance did not cover everything. Please understand, Mum. Month 28 property taxes had increased. They did not have enough to cover both taxes and mortgage. One more month, I promise. Every month brought a new excuse. Every month I paid. I stopped eating at restaurants. I cancelled my cable subscription. I wore the same clothes I had owned for years. I skipped haircuts and dental checkups. My car was over 10 years old and starting to have problems, but I could not afford to fix it properly. I just kept driving it and praying it would not break down. I did not tell Gloria what was happening. I was too ashamed. I was a bookkeeper. I knew better than anyone how money worked. Yet here I was, draining my life savings for a daughter who always had an excuse. One evening, I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw it. Natalie had posted a photo album from what she called their anniversary getaway. The pictures showed her and Derek at a resort in Florida. Derek was lounging by the pool with a cocktail in his hand. Natalie was posing in a new sundress, her hair perfectly styled. The caption read, "Best anniversary trip ever. 5 nights in paradise." I checked the date on the photos. They were from the same month Natalie had told me they could not afford the mortgage. My hands trembled as I scrolled through more pictures. There was Natalie, holding up a designer handbag, showing it off to the camera. There was Derek, wearing new sunglasses that I knew cost hundreds of dollars. There was a receipt visible in one photo for a fancy restaurant dinner that totaled over $200. I sat alone in my living room staring at those photos until my eyes burned. I did not call Natalie that night. I did not know what I would say. I just sat there holding my phone, feeling something crack inside my chest. The following weekend, I drove to Natalie and Derek's house without telling them I was coming. I needed to see things with my own eyes. When I pulled into their driveway, there was a brand new SUV parked in front of the garage. It was shiny and black, with temporary plates still in the window. I had never seen it before. Derek answered the door, surprised to see me. I asked about the car. "Oh, that." He smiled casually. "We are leasing it. The payments are super low. It made more sense than fixing the old car." I nodded slowly, feeling the anger build in my chest, but keeping my face neutral. I asked about Florida. I mentioned that I had seen the pictures online. Natalie appeared behind Derek, her face suddenly tense. The trip was a gift, she said quickly. Derek's company gave him a bonus and covered most of the expenses. It did not cost us anything. I knew she was lying. I could see it in the way she could not meet my eyes. I could hear it in the way her voice pitched higher than normal. I asked her directly, "When will you start paying the mortgage yourself?" Her expression shifted. The sweetness disappeared. She looked annoyed, like I was being unreasonable. "Mum," she said with a sigh, "you are always worrying. We will handle it. Just give us some time." Derek stepped forward, his tone harder than before. "Yeah, Mum," he said. "You need to relax. You're putting too much pressure on us." I left without saying another word. On the drive home, I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator and all my bank statements. I added up every dollar I had spent on that house. Deposit, mortgage payments, property taxes, home insurance. In 4 years, I had given them over $150,000. I looked at Frank's photo on the shelf across the room. I whispered to him, "Frank, I made a terrible mistake." The next morning, I made a decision. I was done being the victim of my own generosity. I went to work and found my colleague Irene during lunch break. Irene had been through a divorce a few years back and had dealt with complicated property issues. I asked her if she knew a good real estate lawyer. She gave me the name of Mr. Henderson, an attorney who specialized in property disputes and co-ownership cases. I called his office that afternoon and scheduled an appointment for the end of the week. When I met Mr. Henderson, I brought every document I had. The deed showing my name as co-owner, the mortgage statements, 4 years of bank records showing every payment I had made, every single receipt I could find. Mr. Henderson reviewed everything carefully. He explained that as a co-owner with 50% ownership of the property, I had significant rights. More importantly, because I had paid almost the entire cost of the house, I had strong legal standing to force a sale if necessary. He told me about something called a partition action. If the other owners refuse to sell voluntarily, you can petition the court to order the sale of the property and divide the proceeds. Given your financial contribution, he said you would likely receive the majority of the sale price. I asked him how long that process would take. "It could be months if they fight it," he admitted. But looking at this documentation, I do not think they have much ground to stand on. Any judge would see that you funded this property almost entirely on your own. I thanked him and told him I needed time to think. A few days later, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Marcus, my son. Marcus rarely called. He was always busy with work, always focused on his own life. But that evening, his voice sounded different, warmer, more concerned. "Mum," he said, "I need to ask you something. Are you okay?" I told him I was fine, just tired from work. He did not let it go. "Mum, I see what Natalie posts online. She is showing off her house, her car, her vacations. But you are still driving that old car you have had forever. I know something is not right." I was silent for a long moment. Then I started crying. I told Marcus everything: the deposit, the mortgage payments, the broken promises, the Florida vacation while I could barely afford groceries. Marcus listened without interrupting. When I finished, his voice was firm but gentle. "Mum, you need to stop letting them take advantage of you. Natalie and Derek are using you. You deserve better than this." He was right. I knew he was right. Hearing it from him gave me the strength I needed. A week before my 58th birthday, Natalie called me. Her voice was sharp and agitated. "Mum," she said, "the bank sent us a warning letter. We are behind on the mortgage this month." I felt a cold satisfaction in my chest. Yes, I said. I did not pay this month. I thought you were handling it now. Natalie exploded. You promised to help us. How could you just stop without telling us? I reminded her calmly that I had helped for 4 years, far longer than the 2 years we agreed upon. I reminded her that I had no more money to give. Natalie said something that made my blood run cold. She said, Mum, you still have your house. You could sell it and help us. She wanted me to sell my home. The home Frank and I built together. The home where I raised my children. She wanted me to sell it to keep paying for her lifestyle. Derek grabbed the phone from her. Mum, he said, his voice dripping with false emotion. If you do not help us, we will lose the house. Do you want your future grandchildren to grow up homeless? Natalie did not have children. They were using a hypothetical grandchild to manipulate me. I told them I would think about it. Then I hung up. Immediately, I called Mr. Henderson. I want to sell the house, I said. How fast can we do this? He said he knew a real estate agent who could move quickly. He also said that with current market conditions, the house could sell within weeks. I signed the paperwork the next day. I authorized the sale of the property using my rights as co-owner. Mr. Henderson assured me that everything was legal and properly documented. Within 2 weeks, we had a buyer. Someone offered $320,000 above asking price. I accepted. The closing was scheduled for 10 days after my birthday. Natalie and Derek had no idea. They were still planning to come to my birthday dinner, still planning to demand more money from me in front of everyone. They had no idea what was waiting for them. My 58th birthday arrived on a cold December evening. The dinner was at a small Italian restaurant in town, a place Frank and I used to visit on our anniversary. I chose it deliberately. I wanted to feel his presence with me that night. The guest list was small. Gloria drove up from New Jersey. A few friends from church came. Pastor William and his wife. My colleague Irene. And of course, Natalie and Derek. I wore my best dress, a deep burgundy one that Frank had always loved. I styled my hair carefully. I put on lipstick for the first time in months. But the most important thing I brought was hidden in my purse, a copy of the signed sale agreement for the house. Gloria arrived first. She hugged me tight and whispered in my ear. You look different tonight, she said. Stronger somehow. I just smiled. The church friends arrived next, bringing cards and small gifts. We chatted warmly while waiting for everyone else. Natalie and Derek showed up 15 minutes late. They did not apologize. They barely said hello to the other guests. Derek immediately grabbed a menu and started pointing out the most expensive items. Natalie ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Gloria glanced at me with raised eyebrows. I squeezed her hand under the table to let her know I was okay. For the first half hour, things were almost pleasant. People made small talk. Someone told a funny story about their grandchildren. The food arrived and everyone started eating. Then Natalie decided it was time. She put down her fork and cleared her throat loudly. Mum. She said, her voice cutting through the conversation, we need to talk about the house. I kept eating, not looking up. Let us discuss it after dinner, Natalie. She shook her head. No, we need to talk about it now. You cannot just stop paying the mortgage without telling us. We are in serious trouble. The other guests fell silent. Gloria tensed beside me. Pastor William looked uncomfortable. I set down my fork carefully. Natalie, I said quietly, this is not the time or place. Derek jumped in, his voice rising. Actually, Mum, this is the perfect time. Everyone here should know how you are treating us. You made a promise, and now you are breaking it. Natalie stood up from her chair. Her face was red, her eyes blazing. Pay the mortgage, she shouted. You owe us this. You signed the papers. You cannot just abandon us now. Everyone in the restaurant turned to look. Other diners at nearby tables stared. A waitress froze mid-step, holding a tray of food. Gloria started to speak, but Natalie cut her off. "Stay out of this, Aunt Gloria. This is between me and my mother." Derek stood up too, crossing his arms like he was preparing for a fight. "Yeah, Mum," he said. "We need an answer right now. Are you going to do the right thing, or are you going to let your own daughter lose her home?" I remained seated, my hands folded on the table. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and I did not see the little girl I had raised. I saw a stranger, a greedy, entitled stranger, who had no gratitude for anything I had done. I stood up slowly. The room was completely silent except for the soft music playing in the background. I spoke clearly, making sure everyone could hear. "You and your husband need to know something," I said. "That house has been sold. The paperwork was signed last week. You have 60 days to move out." Natalie's face went white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Derek sputtered, You cannot do that. That is our house." I reached into my purse and pulled out the copy of the sale agreement. I placed it on the table between us. "I am a co-owner," I said. "I have paid over $150,000 for that house over the past 4 years. Every deposit, every mortgage payment, every tax bill, every insurance premium. According to Pennsylvania law, I have every right to sell my share of the property." And I did. Natalie grabbed the document with shaking hands. Her eyes scanned the pages, not believing what she was seeing. Derek's face turned purple with rage. "You cannot do this to us," he shouted. "We will sue you. We will take you to court." I picked up my napkin, dabbed the corner of my mouth, and looked directly at him. "You are welcome to try," I said. "My lawyer has documented every payment I made for 4 years. Any judge will see that I funded this house almost entirely. You contributed nothing except excuses." I turned to the waitress, who was still standing frozen with her tray. "May I have the check, please? This dinner is over." Gloria grabbed her coat and stood beside me. The church friends followed, gathering their things quietly. Pastor Williams squeezed my shoulder as he passed. Natalie collapsed back into her chair, the document still in her hands. Derek was yelling something, but I had stopped listening. I walked out of that restaurant with my head held high. The cold December air hit my face, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The aftermath was immediate and ugly. That night, my phone exploded with messages and calls. Natalie called 17 times. I did not answer. Her voicemails ranged from sobbing apologies to screaming accusations. The text messages were worse. The first one said, "You have ruined my life. I will never forgive you for this." The second one said, "How could you do this to your own daughter? You are heartless." The third one said, "You planned this. You waited until my birthday to humiliate me in public. You are a monster." I read each message once, then turned off my phone. I slept better that night than I had in years. The next morning, Gloria called from her hotel room. She had stayed overnight to make sure I was okay. "Viola," she said, "I am so proud of you. You finally stood up for yourself. Frank would be proud too." We had breakfast together before she drove back to New Jersey. She made me promise to call her if things got difficult. By the afternoon, Derek had hired a lawyer. His attorney contacted Mr. Henderson with threats of legal action. They claimed the sale was illegal, that I had no right to sell without their consent. Mr. Henderson was not worried. He presented our documentation, 4 years of bank statements, mortgage receipts, tax records, and insurance payments. Every dollar was accounted for. Every payment was traced back to my accounts. Derek's lawyer reviewed the evidence and advised his clients that they had no legal standing to block the sale. A co-owner who has paid the entire cost of a property has clear rights under Pennsylvania law. Trying to fight it would only waste money they did not have. Natalie called me 2 days later. This time her voice was different, softer, pleading. "Mum," she said, "I am so sorry. I did not mean those things I said. I was scared. I was angry. Please, please do not sell the house. We will figure something out. Derek and I will start paying. I promise." I listened to her cry. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay. That was the mother in me, the part that had spent 36 years protecting her from consequences. But I thought about the Florida vacation while I skipped meals. I thought about the designer handbag while I could not afford to fix my car. I thought about every lie, every excuse, every broken promise. "You have 60 days, I said calmly. "I suggest you start looking for a new place to live." Natalie screamed into the phone. "You have no heart." Then she hung up. A week later, Derek showed up at my house. He pounded on the front door, yelling for me to come out and talk to him. I watched through the window as he raged on my porch, his face contorted with anger. I called the police. When the officers arrived, Derek tried to play the victim. He told them I was stealing his house, that I was an abusive mother-in-law. The officers asked if he had been invited onto my property. He admitted he had not. They told him to leave or face arrest for trespassing. He left, but not before turning back and shouting, "You will regret this. Karma is coming for you." The next day, Derek posted a long rant on Facebook. He called me a heartless mother-in-law who had stolen his home. He painted himself as the victim of a cruel old woman who cared more about money than family. Some people commented with sympathy. Others asked questions. One person asked who paid for the house Gloria saw the post and responded with the truth. She explained that I had paid the deposit, every mortgage payment, every tax bill, and every insurance premium for 4 years. She explained that Natalie and Derek had contributed nothing while taking vacations and buying luxury items. Other people started commenting with different opinions. Some called Derek entitled. Others said Natalie should be ashamed. Within hours, Derek deleted the post. Both he and Natalie blocked me on all social media platforms. I did not care. Their opinion of me no longer mattered. The 60 days passed. Natalie and Derek moved out on the final day, leaving the house in disarray. When the real estate agent did the final walkthrough, she found holes in the walls, stains on the carpet, and garbage left behind in the garage. They had done it on purpose, one last act of petty revenge. I hired a cleaning crew to prepare the house for the new owners. It cost me a few $100s, but it was worth it. On the day of closing, I signed the final paperwork and received my portion of the sale proceeds. After paying off the remaining mortgage balance and all legal fees, I walked away with about $140,000. I had lost a daughter. But I had found something more important. I had found my self-respect. The months that followed were a time of rebuilding. I deposited the money from the house sale into my savings account and promised myself I would never again sacrifice my financial security for someone who did not appreciate it. But I also made a decision that surprised even me. I sent Natalie $40,000 with a simple note. "This is your share. I am giving it to you even though you did not earn it. Use it wisely." Natalie did not thank me. She sent back a one-line text message. "It should have been more." I did not respond. There was nothing left to say. Meanwhile, my relationship with Marcus began to change. He started calling more often, sometimes just to chat. He asked about my day, my health, what I was reading, simple things that meant the world to me. One evening, he said something that made me cry. "Mum," he said, "I am proud of you. You finally put yourself first. I know that was not easy. I told him I wished I had done it sooner. Marcus invited me to visit him in his state. He had been dating a woman named Sophie for about a year and wanted me to meet her. I booked a flight immediately. When I arrived, Marcus picked me up from the airport. He looked happy, healthier than I remembered. Sophie was waiting at his apartment with a home-cooked dinner. She was warm and genuine, the kind of person who asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Over dinner, Marcus told me that Sophie had helped him see the importance of family connections. He admitted that he had been distant for too long, too focused on his own life to check on me. He apologized. I reached across the table and held his hand. "You are here now," I said. "That is what matters." Back home in Pennsylvania, I started rebuilding my social life. I joined a book club at the local library and discovered a love for historical fiction. I signed up for a cooking class at the community center and learned to make dishes I had never tried before. I reconnected with old friends from church and started attending social events again. Gloria visited more frequently. We took short trips together, day drives to places we had always talked about visiting but never had. We laughed more than we had in years. I also started taking better care of my home. I replaced the old curtains that had been hanging there since Frank was alive. I planted new flowers in the front garden. I painted the kitchen a cheerful yellow color that made me smile every morning. Pastor William came by one afternoon to check on me. He sat in my living room drinking coffee and listening as I told him about the past year. "Viola," he said, "you are a testament to resilience. You honored your commitment to your family for as long as you could, and then you honored your commitment to yourself. Both of those things take strength." I thanked him, feeling a warmth in my chest that had been missing for a long time. One autumn evening, I was sitting on my porch watching the leaves fall when my phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Mum, it is Natalie. I know you probably do not want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I have been thinking about a lot of things. I am not sure what else to say yet, but I am thinking." I stared at that message for a long time. I did not respond immediately. I had learned the value of patience, of letting things unfold in their own time. For now, it was enough to know that somewhere out there, my daughter was finally starting to reflect. A year passed, seasons changed, my 59th birthday approached. In that year, many things had shifted. Natalie and Derek separated. Derek moved back to live with his own parents, still blaming everyone but himself for their failures. Natalie stayed in a small apartment, working extra hours to pay her own bills for the first time in her adult life. We exchanged occasional text messages. They were short and cautious, like two people learning to walk on ice. She asked how I was doing. I asked the same. Neither of us mentioned the house or the money or the dinner. One day she sent a longer message. She said she was seeing a therapist. She said she was starting to understand how her sense of entitlement had developed over the years. She said Derek had encouraged her worst tendencies, and she had let him because it was easier than taking responsibility. I read that message several times. For the first time, it felt like real accountability. I wrote back, "I am glad you are working on yourself. That takes courage." A few weeks before my birthday, Natalie asked if we could meet for coffee. "Just the two of us," she said. "No expectations, no agenda." I agreed, but I chose a public place. I was not ready to invite her back into my home. We met at a cafe near the library. Natalie looked different, thinner, tired. But there was something in her eyes that I had not seen in years. Humility. She apologized, not the desperate, manipulative apologies she had made before when she wanted something. This was different. This was quiet and specific. She apologized for the years of excuses, for the lies about money, for the scene at the restaurant, for the hateful messages, for assuming I would always be there to rescue her no matter how badly she behaved. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I took a slow breath. Natalie, I said I forgive you, but forgiveness does not mean everything goes back to normal. You broke my trust. That takes time to rebuild. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know, Mum. I know. I told her I was proud of her for going to therapy. I told her I was proud of her for living on her own and facing consequences for the first time. I told her I loved her because I did. A mother never stops loving her child, even when that child causes enormous pain. But I also set boundaries. I told her I would not lend her money again. I told her that our relationship would be rebuilt slowly, based on actions rather than words. I told her that if she wanted to be part of my life, she would need to show consistency over time. She accepted all of it. She did not argue or make excuses. She just said, I understand. Thank you for giving me another chance. We finished our coffee and parted ways with a brief hug. It was not the warm embrace of a reunited family. It was the careful touch of two people testing whether broken bones had healed. My 59th birthday arrived a few weeks later. I did not plan a big dinner this year. I was done with public celebrations that could turn into ambushes. Instead, I had a small gathering at my house. Gloria came. Marcus flew in as a surprise. A few close friends from church joined us. We were sitting in the living room eating cake and laughing about old memories when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and found Natalie standing there. She was holding a cake, a homemade cake with lopsided frosting and candles that were slightly crooked. I made it myself, she said nervously. It is the first cake I have ever baked. I know it looks terrible. I looked at that imperfect cake made by hands that had never bothered to learn how because there was always someone else to do it for her. I saw the effort. I saw the humility. I saw my daughter flawed and broken and trying. I stepped aside and invited her in. That evening, for the first time in over a year, all of us sat around the same table. Marcus and Natalie had an awkward but polite conversation. Gloria watched with cautious optimism. My friends smiled and asked gentle questions. No one mentioned the past. No one brought up the house, the money, the screaming match at the restaurant. We just existed together carefully and tentatively, like a family learning how to be a family again. When I blew out the candles, I did not make a wish for money or health, or even reconciliation. I wished for peace, and for the first time in years, I believed I might actually find it. If you are watching this and you have been taken advantage of by someone you love, I want you to know something important. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. Saying no is not abandonment. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their worst behavior and force them to face the consequences of their choices. That dinner where my daughter screamed at me to pay her mortgage was one of the most painful moments of my life. But it was also the moment I finally woke up. I finally saw the truth about what my family had become, and I finally found the strength to change it. The house was sold. The money was divided. But what I gained was worth more than any property. I gained my self-respect. I gained clarity. And eventually, slowly, I began to gain my daughter back. Not the entitled stranger who demanded money, the real person underneath. The one who needed to fall before she could learn to stand on her own. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love? Have you ever had to choose between being kind and being respected? Drop a comment below and share your story. You might help someone else who is going through the same thing. If this story touched you, Please hit that like button. It helps more people find these videos. And if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope my experience gives you courage if you need it, and peace if you are still searching for it. May you always know your own worth, and may you never let anyone make you forget it.